Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today's video we're going to be brutally ranking. That's right, we're going to be brutally ranking Ina's Dream Barbecue. If you're new here, I rank games on 5 different aspects: the gameplay, story, graphics, sound and music, and the price. So let's get into this. Before I start this section, I do just want to say I never realized how much dialogue heavy this game is. So it might seem like the story section, but it's not. Apart from that, let's get into the section. Right, so the game just throws you in. No intro, no explanation, just vibes. You spawn in this liminal dark hellscape with repetitive buildings. Then the music, it's unsettling, meaning the vibe is just horrifying. But then we have our first bit of gameplay, the controls. W to walk and shift to run. I mean, thanks to that gameplay, I guess. But that is all you get given. Honestly, when I loaded into this game, I thought it was secretly a horror game. It seemed too scary to not be. But after exploring this horror place, I then stumble into a random bed. This teleporting me to a different map where the saturation has just been cranked up to like 9,000. So how is it I go from some horror map to suddenly a neon fever dream? And also on top of that, the music is still scary right now, so I'm convinced this is a horror game. But just as I thought it couldn't get more unhinged, I walk up some stairs and a little animation plays. Here we see our protagonist, Ina. But this conversation brings us no context. So what I decided to do is wander around and see who I could find. I did meet one guy whose face just did not look like it belonged to his body. But he suggests to me that I can go kill this boss. The boss I think I'm looking for. Like I said, there's no context. It's quite confusing. But what he says is that if I clear the smoke around us, I can clear a path straight to the boss. So I'm like, yeah, sure. But how do I clear this smoke? But all he said is to go as the receptionist. So off I go to find the receptionist, which looks very strange. But here I ask, how do I clear the smoke to the boss? And she lets me know how I do this. So now we kind of have a bit of context adding up, saying that we're trying to find and kill this boss, but in order to do so, we need to clear the smoke. But in order to clear the smoke, we have to go find a genie through one of the maps. So it is so confusing right now, and we're not even in the main game. And back I wandered right outside, where I couldn't even open half of the doors the statues were giving me. I thought maybe it's a puzzle, or maybe the devs forgot. I was just very confused at this point. But I did find out that this is the chapter 1 of the game, meaning that there's going to be other chapters for the future, so that's probably what these statues are for. But on the way, I went to go talk to this person who was on about a bathroom, which I thought was very confusing at first, so I just ignored it, but this was important later on. But then eventually, I made it to the big map, and this is where the real game begins. This open world area is actually awesome. It's huge, colourful, and packed with the weirdest NPCs you'll ever see. Like the horseman, who's just a horse who wants you to find his missing pets. But then there's the wizard, some witches, and a guy guarding the bridge, and they all give you jobs, but not normal jobs. You get stuff like blinding a purple guy using mayonnaise, and no, I'm not joking. But the thing is, these jobs are genuinely fun. They're not too hard, not too easy, but just confusing enough to make it seem like you're solving something. But not so confusing that it'll make you rage like me in any other game. But what I did realize is that the gameplay is very trade-based. You do one job, get an item, and then use it for another. I do also want to mention the puzzles, as they are the main part of the gameplay. So the first puzzle in this game, well, at least chronologically, is finding all the pets for the horseman. Once you collect them, he rewards you with chocolate. Then you're able to trade the chocolate with a vending machine to get mayonnaise, just like I said earlier. But then you use that mayonnaise and stuff it in the purple guy's eyes. Or more his head. But this triggers a wild cutscene involving him and the bridge guy, which is just crazy. Just watch this. But after that, it allows you to unlock the bridge, letting you access to my favorite puzzle. And that puzzle being saving the witch's sister using a massive crane in this weird little UI minigame. It actually felt like proper gameplay for once, not just trying to find some pets. Even though it was very basic, I think because it was a different UI, it just felt more enjoyable. But once you saved her, the witches give you a motherboard. And just like before how I said this game is trade-based, you give that motherboard to the wizard, which kicks off some weird ritual where his house explodes. But then he just gives you something called a human board, which is literally a human's head. And then you have one of the weirdest puzzles in the game, and you use the head to start climbing to the top. You have to find these weird square things in either the map or platforms, and this guy's body extends and you use it as a bridge. It's so weird. But those were the main puzzles, and while it might not seem like there's much gameplay here, there kind of is. It's just not always obvious. because when I was running around holding my chocolate reward, I had no clue what to do next. But that's the point. You explore and talk to random NPCs and get jobs that slowly start to connect. It's less about action and more about what the hell do I do with this mayonnaise. I guess that's kind of what a puzzle game is. But what I love about it is that it's so weird and it works. But going back to the human board, this is essential for progressing. This is because the mechanics I explained earlier, how the body grows in certain places, it helps me climb all these buildings, going up spiral towers and using it as a bridge, and I may or may not have fallen to my death many times because of this. And you're like, how do you fall to your death? Well, it's the ice and wind mechanics. They were just so annoying. Like, it's the one thing I hated about the game, but it did make it more challenging, so I guess it could stay. But after spending all my time trying to get to the top, I thought there was going to be a genie waiting for me to clear the smoke. But no, it was just this weird crocodile just waiting to eat me. Like, what is this game? But after it ate me, it took me to a dark room, where in this room I meet a weird character who lets me use this bathroom. I also do want to mention this bathroom thing got mentioned so many times and I never understood what it was for, but I know it has importance. But this is kind of where the bathroom thing ends. This is because it shows me a giant bathroom. But surprise, it's locked behind another puzzle, which isn't your normal puzzle. It's not an easy one, so I obviously fail. So whilst failing to achieve this toilet, I had the problem sorted later on, as I seen on this call. But then I get kicked into another backroom style map, but this one is a lot nicer. Here an NPC guides me and suggests that I follow these orange Sour Patch things, who guide me to the correct house of many. And then I hit this rainbow path, which ends in a void with a blue river. And then I have this creature asking me to describe the boss, like I'm filing some police report. Like, I came here thinking this was a genie and it was going to be the end of the game, but it's more than that. This is because he asked me to touch his memory thing for my desired future, where I finally get to meet the genie, and it sacrifices themselves to clear the smoke. Then to leaving that room when the smoke is cleared up, me thinking the job was done, because the guy from the start even called me to say the smoke was all cleared up. So time to escape, right? But no, wrong. Because I still have a few more puzzles, but when I try to escape, I return to the original main map. But not with all these orange fancy colours, it's like a cursed PS1 remake. Like literally, the bridge is a PNG. The colours are all gone and most NPCs are missing. I try to leave, but I can't. And the final cutscene shows my character turning into some abstract entity, then the credits roll. So yeah, that is literally the whole gameplay. So what's my overall thoughts on it? Well, it's an incredible game, especially for a puzzle one. The sheer amount of characters and dialogue might feel like a lot at first, but honestly, I loved it. You start to actually know these characters, their weird personalities, strange dialogue, complete unhinged vibes, and they all feel like they were pulled from a different universe. Honestly, the NPCs were one of the coolest things. Then the puzzles themselves, they were surprisingly not that hard, which is very obvious because I managed to solve them. But I won't lie, there were moments where I was just standing there, staring at my screen, complete brain dead, trying to figure out how I would complete this job. But still, I kind of liked that. It gave me that puzzle game feeling. Then the whole job system is actually pretty cool. Even at the start, I was wondering how I was supposed to do anything with 0 resources. But it's like you're juggling 5 fetch quests at once. And somehow they're all connected in a bizarre way. And even after the jobs, you've got puzzles, parkour, random teleporting to new maps, and a guy that just casually turns into a bridge for you. So yeah, the gameplay was solid. But, and it's a big but, I don't think there was enough gameplay. It leaned way more into dialogue than I wanted, and at times I was clicking through text waiting to actually do something. But still, when the game lets you play, it's brilliant. But because there's not enough gameplay, and I will expect more in the future, I'm gonna give this section a 7 out of 10. Alright, so coming into this section, yeah, I was confused. Throughout the whole game, you slowly piece together the dialogue, and from what I gathered, the story of Ina Dream Barbecue is basically this. It's like an episodic fever dream where Ina, the main character, goes on a weirdly calm quest to find and eliminate someone called the Boss. Along the way, you explore surreal worlds, talk to completely unhinged characters, and do the most random jobs. All to eventually find a genie who clears the smoke from a hallway. So yeah, that's the summary, but what it left me was wanting more. Like, who is this boss, and why does Ina want to kill him? Why is the bathroom so important, and who the hell are these characters? There's no explanation, no lore, no backstory, no context, literally nothing. I even did some actual research and found that there's an animated series tied to the game, but that's just as confusing. Same weird maps, same glitchy character designs, and apparently multiple versions of Ina. I mean, yeah, Ina's design does change in game, so that's kind of on track. But one episode of this animated series which was really close to the game was called Extinction Party. Like, this straight up feels like it was the game. It has the same rooms, same dialogue, and Ina doing puzzles. Also, when Ina is moving in this series, it's like you are her, so it's just like the game. But even after watching all the episodes, I still didn't get any lore. I looked through threads, deep dives, and everyone was just like, yeah, it's confusing, just accept that. Which I guess is kind of the point. You're not supposed to understand everything. It's all meant to be weird, colourful, and chaotic. A puzzle game with a story that's also a puzzle. I'd say it's both genius and annoying. But to be fair, like I said earlier, there's only one chapter out, and chapter 2 is hopefully coming soon, so it could all come together later. Also, I found out there are many endings to chapter 1. I did the bathroom route, but there's one called the Purge Day, which I still haven't tried yet, but I do find that so cool. I love when games give you different paths that aren't just cosmetic, like real changes. It just gives that real replay value. But as it stands right now, the story is barely developed. It feels like it has potential, but the potential doesn't count if it's just sitting there. So I'm basing my score on what's actually in the game. And if you play the game, you might love me or hate me for this, but this section is gonna get a 4 out of 10. Coming into this section, the graphics had me immediately confused. It felt like I was about to play a pixelated horror version of Doom. Like, when I spawned in, everything was these burnt out dark grey 3D buildings under a red sky. It just screamed horror to me. But after wandering this backrooms-like map, I found a glowing blue bed. But even though it was just one colour, it was way more detailed than anything else in the area. So I jumped into it and I got hit with this weird animation, and boom, I'm in a neon fever dream of a room. Psychedelic colours, looping assets, and still that old crunchy 3D pixel vibe. Honestly, the pixel aesthetic is the only thing that stays consistent throughout the whole game. But then eventually I got to see my character, Ina. And then I also saw this weird guy whose face looked like it shouldn't belong to his body. But apart from him, I've got to say, Ina's look, it's kind of perfect. Like, I was hesitant at first, but the two-tone design that swaps depending on her mood or her alter ego is genius. Especially in that giant bathroom scene where she's just her blue self, which I guess is the bad side, but it's kind of weak now. It's quite weird to explain. I also love they didn't just stick to the blue and yellow like they did in the series. The extra colours really give her a weird hero and some broken universe energy. But enough about her, I want to talk about the main maps. When I teleported to this map, the early claustrophobic hallway felt like horror again, especially after that terrifying animation. Until I looked out of a window of a massive building and I saw the main open world. At first, it looked a mess. Random assets everywhere, nothing matching, but once I got into it, I kind of realized it's actually a very clever chaotic desert map. This map having a cave, some weird townfolk, and a lot to explore. Not perfect, but very functional. But the next map you get introduced by is one of my favorites, and it's the giant bathroom. Literally a black void with one enormous bathroom. Incredible. Then next we get introduced to this village map, and then into a rainbow psychedelic map. But then we go through all these small little maps into one of my personal favorites, which is the broken version of the main map. It's the same desert layout, but it's stripped of color, detail, and even the bridge is just a flat PNG. It looks awful, but I loved it. But overall for the maps, they're very chaotic in an intentional way. They keep you distorted, but curious. And while the environment sets the tone, it's the characters that make everything feel even stranger, but now we'll get into them. So in this game, there are a ton of characters, but I'm just going to focus on the weirdest and most important ones, starting with the Japanese guy from the start. His design is strange. He's got this solid black body like a walking shadow, but then his face is bizarrely well rendered, almost too good. But the contrast on him actually makes him look really cool, and his facial expressions are top tier. But then next up we have the Wizard, easily one of the coolest designs in this game. He does look like a very basic PNG of a classic wizard with the blue robe and yellow stars, but he's more than that. The design of him just looks so cool. Also, he lives in a seal house, which reminded me of a scene from a film called Coraline, so that is a 10 out of 10 just for that interior design. But then we've got the trio of witches. These three are annoying, loud, and flat as hell. Literally. They have a paper cutout style with blocky colours, no pixel detailing like the wizard, and no shadows. Honestly, this kind of broke my brain. But then I did see a similarity when I saw the Horseman. He's got a great design, a weird execution, confusing art direction, but that's the vibe at this point. At least it had colour block and not pixel art just like the witches, so there's some similar design. But apart from all the other 2D ones, the characters, they're alright. They look cool, but they're not exactly iconic. Like the people on screen now, they're cool, but they just didn't add too much for me. But now let's talk about the other characters, which are the 3D ones. So the first 3D character you'll meet is probably the Bridge Man. He's just plopped into the game with no explanation, but it's cool because he's actually got shading and depth to him, which makes him look like a goat shoved into a Squid Game uniform, or should I say Crab Game. By the way, Crab Game is a game that I recently reviewed, so if you want to watch that, then, go ahead. It wasn't too bad of a video. Anyway, so Bridgeman doesn't fit in at all, but somehow that makes him fit perfectly. Because the thing is, they all match up in some ways. For example, the buildings are 3D, but still have the pixel 2D artwork to it. But then you have the other 3D characters, which are shown on screen. These are also quite cool characters, but still just didn't add enough for me. But genuinely, just because I didn't think they were the coolest, you can really see the sheer amount of detail gone into these characters. Like, genuinely, it's amazing. People won't see it at first, just like I didn't, but after a while, you really get to see how they all blend in. Like, think about it, the careful choice of the colours on each character, having different colour palettes, and using different art styles from 2D to 3D to pixel art to then shading. Like, there's so much, but it all works, and these characters carry the section. But before I do finish this section, I do just want to talk about the GUI graphics, because I think they're really cool. Like, the first one is the job book. It's not just some flat menu that tells you what to do. No, Ian literally grabs a book with an animation and flips through the pages like you actually read a real book. It's such small detail, but it makes that whole game feel way more alive and weirdly immersive. And the final GUI, which I think is really cool, is after completing a job. When you complete it, a really cool animation of a gambling machine spits out your reward. And if you know me, I love a bit of gambling. It's such a weird, satisfying touch that makes even finishing a side quest feel like you hit the jackpot. But yeah, that's all the graphics I wanted to talk about. In my opinion, the graphics in this game are amazing, but they're not absolutely perfect. Like, I feel like if it made a bit more sense, it would be cool. Also, it's not like it's some Baldur's Gate film rendering, but also still really cool on the different art styles. This leading me to give this section a 7 out of 10. Starting off, I didn't realise how much music this game actually had, and that's just with one chapter. See, when I looked up to find the soundtrack, I found a playlist with 57 tracks, which probably includes a lot of remixes and repeats. So instead of going for that one, I stuck to the official OST from the Ina's creator's YouTube, which had around 12 tracks. But still, I was confused on what OST was what, because on his YouTube channel it only had 8 tracks, and then on Spotify it had 12. Like, not even the game's just confusing, this whole thing is. But a huge shout out to all the artists for actually putting effort in. Like, music is so underappreciated in games, and these guys have really matched the bizarre vibes perfectly. But the first track you hear is pure horror. It's eerie, intense, and genuinely unsettling. This track being called Outworld Red by John Fraser, and it genuinely made me wonder if I accidentally downloaded a horror game or something, because I didn't see that this game was horror. But then I was able to escape this eerie curse map by sleeping in a glowing bed, and then the game hits you some weird animation and then a tribal beat. Slightly less terrifying, but still oddly aggressive. And I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure this one's called The Shaman by Basil Igor. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but I mean Igor, you know? The environment around you looks like it wants to be funky, but the music is still clinging on to those horror vibes, making me still think it's a horror game. Then finally, I get a bit of peace. You walk into a brighter area and suddenly all the music drops into this weird, quirky, funky tune. This making me think the horror was over, but genuinely it was not. But now going to the main map, I just want to go back to that creep factor, because seriously, why does this game keep gaslighting me? One minute I'm dealing with horror movie ambience, and then the next minute I start calming down because it's all quirky and fun. But when you try and go into the main map, there might be no music, but it's still terrifying. It's just you in silence in some dark void of a room. But as I kept progressing, the music finally chilled out. No more horror vibes, just ambient floaty stuff. This is because you get into the main map, and the main map has its own theme. You'll probably hear it the most. It's not amazing, but it's not inoffensive, which is probably exactly what you want when you're stuck in a puzzle game. It just sits in the background and doesn't get annoying, which is perfect for this game, but it's still got that creepiness into it. Also, this track is called Night Hill by John Fraser. But in this main map, you have many puzzles, and one of the puzzles has one of my favorite tracks in it, and this is the crane puzzle. This crane puzzle is activated while trying to help the witch's sisters, and when you get into this puzzle, this song genuinely slaps. It's upbeat, funky, and dare I say, it gave me hope. And if you guys were wondering, this one's called Crane Operator by Oliver Buckland. And it really delivers the energy that you feel like you're solving something and getting a reward out of it. Easily one of the best vibes in the entire game. But once you get past the main maps, the music quiets down again. Not really much stands out, except for 2 different tracks. First is this calm, relaxing track that plays during the village puzzle section. It fits perfectly, like the song was specifically made for that space. Super peaceful, and the kind of track that makes me getting stuck almost therapeutic. And again, this song was also by Oliver Buckland, and it's called Lost Village. And then there's the final one that I honestly love, and it's the broken map. It's absolutely unforgettable. This is because here, the music is so loud, funky, and chaotic. This track is called She Shells by John Fraser, and it is so energetic but so weird and still fits. Like, it's so strange and off the wall that it kind of loops back to being something of iconic. But like I said, that's all the music I recognize and enjoyed. But before I do finish this section, I did also realize that there are many other songs in the other routes. So if you would like an in-depth video of each route or even the future chapters, then let me know in the comments below. Overall, for the music, it does work and it fits the game's chaotic vibes even if it doesn't blow me away. So yeah, the music is good, but it's definitely not mind-blowing, and it's not like a lot of other games' OSTs that genuinely blew my mind, so that's why I'm going to give this section a 6.5 out of 10. But now for the sound effects, which I do have a mixed opinion about, but more in a fun way. Like the first sound effect, the phone ringtone. It genuinely jump scared me twice. When you hear it, it's goofy, loud, and it always catches me off guard, especially when the game already has me on edge. Like at the start of going into the main map where it's so creepy silent and this loud ringtone just comes out of nowhere. Then the next sound effect I want to say are the water sounds. They're classic but satisfying. Walking through water or just hearing waterfalls just adds that little like ASMR moment to it. Just so relaxing. Then we have the human board. It makes some weird disturbing sounds. I still don't know what to think of it. And finally, the job completion sound effect. It's straight up just slot machine sounds. It makes you feel like you hit the jackpot in Vegas for helping a horse guy find his pets. It just gives so much of that dopamine. And I know I said that was final, but for an honorable mention, I would probably say... Did I get you? I mean, it scared me. I thought it'd scare you guys, but probably didn't. So yeah, that's all the sound effects that kind of stood out to me. There are a lot more sound effects, but none of them really felt that special to me. This leading me to give the sound effects section a 4.5 out of 10, meaning that the whole section gets a 5.5 out of 10. Now for the final section, the price. You're getting all this gameplay, wild puzzles, branching endings, insane visuals, and Joel G isn't asking for a single penny. For a game this weird, detailed, and ambitious, to cost nothing is actually kind of unreal. Now there is a supporter edition upgrade for about £8.50, which gives you some bonus content and behind the scenes extras. But mostly, it's just a way to support the creator, and I love that. There's no pressure, no paywalls, just the creators of the game suggesting that there is a way to support them. And genuinely, this is how a lot of games should be in the future, but obviously it won't be because how would they make money? But yeah, genuinely, the fact that the whole game costs nothing and you can just get a supporter edition if you want to help, that is one of the best things I've ever seen for a game. So that's why I'm gonna give this section a 10 out of 10. So for the rankings, let's see how many points Ina Dream BBQ got. So for the gameplay, we can see it got a 7 out of 10. Then the story getting a 4 out of 10, graphics getting a 7 out of 10, music and sound getting a 5.5 out of 10, and finally the price having a 10 out of 10, meaning that in total this game gets a 33.5 out of 50. In my opinion, this is lower than expected, because the thing is, the game did not feel like a 33.5 out of 50, it felt way better than that. But the main aspects just went to not having enough gameplay, having a confusing and non-contextual story, and I just wasn't feeling the music and sounds. And apart from that, let me know what you guys thought of the game, and please comment what games you want to see next. Apart from that, see you guys in the next one.